On July 3rd, 2020, the movie The Outpost was released worldwide on demand. It tells the story of the soldiers at Combat Outpost Keating who on October 3rd, 2009 were attacked by hundreds of Taliban fighters who had the intent of destroying that base and killing all Americans and coalition members stationed there. That day, 8 American soldiers were killed, many more wounded. As a result of that battle, 2 Medals of Honor were awarded, countless Bronze Stars, Purple Hearts, Distinguished Service Crosses, and the acts of courage and heroism that day that were displayed by those soldiers are unbelievable. On July 6th, 2020, I posted a review of that film to my YouTube channel, The ScuttleButt Show. And a couple days after that, I got a comment. And the comment said, "Hey, thanks for that review. I appreciate it. My brother fought at COP Keating." And I replied to that comment and said, if you think your brother would ever want to talk with me about it or be open to that, have him email me. And I put my email down there. A day later, I got an email from someone named Kyle who said, "Hey, I was at COP Keating. I'd be down to talk to you about it sometime." And I said, "Oh, hey, are you the guy whose brother commented on the video?" And he said, "No, I don't know who that is. Somebody else saw that comment and sent me it and said, 'Hey, do you know who this is?'" No one knew who that person was or who his brother was. So, but we started talking, and he said, "Well, yeah, I'd be down to talk to you about it sometime." And I said, "Great." And as we talked more, he said, "Well, another buddy of mine, Christopher Jones, lives in the same area as me. He could come over. He was there too." And actually, Zach Koppes, who was there as well, is coming down, in a couple days for a little reunion. Maybe the 3 of us could sit down and chat with you. And I said, "That would be incredible. That would be awesome. I would love that." And they said, go check out the book Red Platoon, authored by Clint Romesha, who was one of the Medal of Honor recipients that day. He was the platoon sergeant, and I think co-authored by somebody who just helped him write the book. And so I read the book Red Platoon, which I strongly recommend you go read. And then we sat down on that Saturday, and we talked about what happened on October 3rd, 2009, on pre-deployment training and what life was like after they all got home from that deployment. What you're about to listen to is part 1 of a 3-part special episode. In part 1, we're going to talk about who they were, who they are, who they were as Red Platoon, what getting ready for that deployment was like, and the first few months and the beginning of the battle on October 3rd, 2009. Enjoy. What's up, guys? Max here with another episode of the ScuttleButt Show, and today I am honored, humbled, and thankful to be joined by 3 soldiers whose story has been told many times, and you can watch it in the new movie The Outpost. You can read it in the books The Outpost and also Red Platoon. I'm joined today by 3 members of the 361 Cav Red Platoon from COP Keating, Afghanistan, 2009. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Doing great.
Thanks for joining me here. If just so people know who they're listening to, can you guys just introduce yourselves real quick?
I'm Kyle Knight, 13 Fox Forward Observer for Red Platoon.
I'm Zachary Koppes. I was a scout for Red Platoon.
I'm Christopher Jones. I was infantry, 11 Bravo in the Red Platoon.
Thank you guys for being here today. Like I said, it really does mean a lot to me, and I know it'll mean a lot to everybody listening, because the story that you guys your true story, which you guys have really been through, has been told in interviews, it's been in movies, it's been in books, and you hear it from certain perspectives, but I think it's really valuable that we'll get to hear it from some of it from your guys' perspective. And now it's been 11 years later, and a movie just came out about 2 weeks ago about that. What's it been like to tell this story and to have this story told in so many different ways, from so many different perspectives, that is about you guys?
Definitely kind of a weird thing. Like, immediately after, when we got back, I think the first book came out a year or two after the battle.
Yeah.
And then the Red Platoon book came out 3 years after that book. And then the movie just came out. So it's kind of like these little milestones. We keep hitting a new thing that comes out. And again, I just get back in that mode of talking about what happened and sharing again what happened.
I think it's probably safe to say this will be something that you guys will be asked to talk about for the rest of your lives.
Most likely.
Absolutely.
And you know, I've always thought, like recently in the past few years, I've kind of thought it was odd. And I've talked to some people in the Navy community who have had some perspectives on this, that because of the time that we live in, like the modern age of technology and information, there are movies coming out and books coming out of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq sometimes a year or a couple years after they happen. And a lot of times the guys involved are still in the active duty or something, and it's a very strange phenomenon to witness your story being told now, as opposed to, like, you know, books and movies about Vietnam and World War II. Like the movie Greyhound just came out about World War II, and that was, 70 years ago. And now your guys' story is being told, as you said, a year or two after you get back. It's kind of remarkable at the rate at which
we
this
were
stuff's
aware
coming out.
the first book was being written while we were still deployed. We were at Boston for like 4 or 5 weeks
Mm-hmm.
before we found out Jake Tapper. We didn't know who it was at the time, but
Really?
some journalist was writing the book. Yeah.
Wow. And were you guys getting bothered a lot by people who wanted to talk to you, interview you?
Not at first. Like, I don't think a lot of people knew. Like, 2009, there was so much going on in Afghanistan. I think it kind of got lost in between all these stories and everything. And then, before we started the interviews, some of the things we brought up was the Bo Bergdahl thing. So Bo Bergdahl was going on at that time. So it kind of just got sandwiched between a lot of stories that it didn't really, get out in the mainstream or anything like that.
And what do you think? I didn't even mention, there was also, Netflix did 2 episodes of their show Medal of Honor, obviously because there were 2 Medals of Honor awarded as a result of the battle on October 3rd. And so that's just another example of so people listening understand where they can kind of see reenactments or dramatizations or examples of the account of that day. So yeah, I remember when it happened and hearing about a base had been overrun, an army base had been overrun in Afghanistan. We had detainees coming in. We were trying to figure out what they knew or what had happened, recover as much intel as we could where I was in Bagram. And it was all rumors, it was all hearsay, second, third hand. And then, so you guys were telling me it was only your 3rd month into deployment, right?
4th, I believe.
4th month into deployment?
Yeah, we had 8 months left after.
I just want people to know that, because it seems like after that happened, it would seem like, then deployment would end and you guys would go home, but it's not the case at all. You guys went on, did 8 more months on deployment.
Yeah, I think they gave us 1 or 2 days off.
Yeah, because we were just talking about, we heard stories like in Iraq, if you went through some stuff, they would take you to a palace, give you a week off, let you like heal, recover, get it together. And we were back on QRF within like 10 days. We were rolling out the gate again.
Our mentality was we weren't going to let this get us down. That's what our NCOs were saying. So it was right back to work. Mm-hmm.
Was that good, do you think, for you guys out there? Is that what you needed?
I always need a vacation, so I disagree with that. But I think their mindset was like, don't let these guys dwell on what happened, or it's going to start falling apart. I give all the credit to our NCOs, our leadership in the platoon, of just saying, hey, we're going to keep moving forward. Don't let this get you down. We kind of adopted that mentality.
Yep.
And it never gets any better was our platoon motto the whole way through. And we just kind of kept riding it, like, it's not going to get better. Just keep pushing, because we're not getting a vacation.
Yeah, if you in Red Platoon, they addressed the "It doesn't get better" motto, and how that was, you know, basically banned. Like you couldn't say it, right? Is how
Yeah.
is how the book depicts it. But honestly, it seems it's like that kind of dark humor where what else can you do except for kind of self-loathe, self-deprecate?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of, I've always found that kind of thing to almost be healing, you know, and helpful. But it sounds like they wouldn't even let you guys get down about it out there.
No, they truly wanted us at our lowest at all points. But our platoon, like nobody outside of our platoon liked our platoon, so I think it brought them pleasure to see us suffer at all moments of the deployment. But we kind of liked it. We embraced the suck, as they say, and we just thought we were better than everybody. And you know, whatever they do to us, we're Teflon. We're gonna move through it. So that's what we did the entire deployment.
I think to tell the story, it has to start with who you guys were as Red Platoon. So you were stationed in Fort Carson, right, in Colorado?
Yep.
What was well, actually, let me ask you guys this: when you went on that deployment, how long were you all in the Army?
I did a year in Korea, and then got there. So I was like in for about 2 years before we deployed.
About a year and a half.
October 3rd was my 1 year anniversary.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Holy shit! And so what was so basically the year? What was the pre-deployment cycle for you guys? Was it about a year?
Yeah, because when I got there, I was supposed to go to 2-4 and go to Iraq, and I was right on the fence, and they're like, "Well, we're going to send you to 4-4. You got a year now to train up for Afghanistan." So it was about a year of training, I'd say, that we had, but I think we only got a year because we were supposed to go to Iraq, and they changed it to Afghanistan for the surge.
I got to the unit about right when 361 was coming back from Iraq. It was around Christmas time, 08, I believe.
Okay. So what was that pre-deployment cycle like?
It sucked. Like, we would be at the range for unnecessarily long hours. You know, it was mostly just walking with rucksacks to get used to the mountains, and then, you know, month-long field problems. And I mean, I didn't really feel like I was prepared. I know that, like, this was all of our first deployments, so you never feel like you're prepared enough. But I was like, I don't know why we're doing this. We're about to go to war, and I feel like I am not ready to go to war at all.
In the Navy, there's an idea that in pre-deployment, you want guys to be working extremely hard, practicing high levels of aggression in all the training, so that way they are most at the kind of peaking right before deployment. And that's why the tempo stays so high and the demand stays so high, because you want guys to be basically like, you know, begging to be let loose on deployment. Like that'll be a respite from the pre-deployment training. And it sounds like from reading the book that you guys had at least from that cycle had bonded at pretty high levels and also established a pretty high level of standard for each other.
100%.
Including with aggression.
Yeah, we were an aggressive platoon.
Gotta have thick skin.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you gotta have thick skin. That's definitely true in the military. Whenever I encountered somebody who was like in the hurt feelings club, is what I would call it. It was really annoying. That was really frustrating.
You don't show any sort of weakness or humanity in Red. You'll be exploited immediately.
When
Like,
did?
I
Sorry.
was just gonna say, the second we had anyone who just didn't fit in, they were gone. They were gone from the platoon, and our NCOs were hard ass to the max. And I mean, they would get rid of people because they weren't good at sports. They get rid of because you weren't smart enough. Like the second you showed any shortcoming whatsoever, you were gone. So you definitely had to keep it 100 in Red Platoon, not to get kicked out and go to some other platoon you didn't want to go to.
Is that where you guys wanted to be, all of you?
Not at first, because like you said, you can't show any weakness. NCOs are hard, And then we deployed, and I was like, thank God we're in Red Platoon, because I wouldn't feel safe in the other ones.
Absolutely.
What was COP Keating called when you guys got there?
It was COP Keating.
Okay. So when you guys got there, was that the furthest outpost from that any of you guys, as far as from whatever the main fob was that any of you guys from 361 was at?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for 361. There was a sketchy, I think it was a Black Ops site that was down the road. Remember that? It was like a CIA base that we didn't talk about, but we knew was kind of down the road. And it was like right on the Pakistan border. But aside from that, yeah, we were the furthest from all of it. I think we were the only base that artillery couldn't reach.
Yeah, even with RAP, it couldn't quite range they could hit near the OP, but not the COP itself.
Kyle, you were a forward observer, right?
Yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't know, can you kind of real quick summarize what that
So,
job is?
For extended range, you can use what's called a rocket-assisted projectile, and as the shell hits its peak, it will fire off a rocket. For extended range, it messes with the accuracy and stuff. So you're not really a safe option real close to anything you don't want to accidentally hit.
So you guys were out there fairly, completely isolated. In the book, they talk about resupply because you guys were getting like no resupply.
No.
And which is horrible when you're out there. Because there was no real main road, right? No main road that could be easily traveled.
Well, they wanted to use that road, and that's when Ben Keating got killed, is because they wanted to prove that we could use that road, and he was driving on it, and that's when his truck flipped. So they didn't want us driving on the road after that. So, I mean, unless you had like one of the commercial Toyotas they have over there, you couldn't go anywhere on that road in a vehicle.
You guys deployed what in May or June?
May.
And
yeah, we deployed in May, and I think we got to Keating first week of June.
Yeah.
So for people listening who've never been to Afghanistan, it was probably nice when you guys got out there, I'm guessing. Like
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
I mean,
we'd always like look at each other and be like, this could be a ski resort.
Oh, absolutely.
This would be a resort that people would come spend thousands of dollars to just have a night up in these mountains. And
river, you can go fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Tons of stuff you could do.
Yeah. It's just too bad it's ruined by the horrible people that exist out there.
I wouldn't recommend vacationing there. Right?
Yeah, it's what's crazy is people love to go out there and see for themselves, which I guess then you'll get what you're looking for when you get out there.
Mm-hmm.
You might be out there for extended time.
Yeah. Or
they can trade you back.
Like it might be buried out there. It might be out there for eternity.
Yeah. We'd see like crazy animals and insects and stuff. I'm like, I bet the reason no one in the world knows about these is because researchers can't come out here and like study the ants of northeast Afghanistan or whatever was popping around. So it was like
crazy stuff.
Yeah, crazy weird stuff. But it was always like, this is like nobody's been here. We were seeing stuff that no one else in the world had seen. It was wild.
Afghanistan's a weird country. It's a really weird country. So culturally, it's very weird too. So you guys were out there, and what was around the base? What was it like? Where were the villages? Where were the places that you guys would have, your shuras and all that?
We had a small village called Ermul right outside the wire. You go out and it's right to the left past the police station, and then there was the village of Kamdesh, population of about 10,000, up on the mountain past the OP.
Now, for people who don't know, 10,000 is a ton of people in Afghanistan in a village.
Big.
That's a big village.
Yeah.
But and then we had a river that ran right beside the base. It was the base, and then the road, and then the river. And that river, it was all the water coming off the mountain. If you found that thing, you were dead.
Yeah. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we had a bridge we could cross to go into the village. There was an exit out the back to go up the other side of the mountain, and I mean that was it. That's all we could see around us.
There was another village. What was it? North down the river.
What's that called?
That's where the cannibals. The rumor was that there was a village of cannibals down the river, but you know, in the military, there's all those crazy stories and stuff. But yeah, they said there was a village of cannibals down the valley.
So you guys are out there. You got, you're on Keating, which is a far out outpost, which is like generally on deployment where you would want to be, because it's going to be where your best experience is, pending, you know, anything horrible happening, like basically what happened to you guys. But your best experiences that you'll get of deployment in combat are going to be at the furthest away outposts, where you can kind of be away from the flagpole and operate independently, autonomously, and go conduct missions and, you know, go do the stuff that people probably imagine they're going to do when they join the military. But what a lot of people don't know, and I'm not totally clear at as far as what your guys' experience was after reading the book, but when you're on an outpost out there, who all is there, right? Because there's you guys, then there's probably people manning the talk. There's going to be cooks. Martin was a engineer, right? He was a mechanic.
Generator mechanic.
You had what were the foreign? Who was the foreign soldiers out there training the ANA? Where were they from? Latvia. And then you had ANA. You probably had local. Can you guys kind of paint the picture of who all was out there with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'd have between 3 and 2 Latvians, and they were in charge of the ANA. They were kind of like liaisons. We had Grissom, who was the water purification guy.
Yeah.
So you had these like odd job, you know, people that were there, but we'd have 2 platoons, and then whoever the 3rd platoon was would go up to the OP. We just had, you know, every so often they'd fly in somebody like an exterminator to get rid of the fleas in the barracks, you know, and they'd be looking around terrified. Like, I just want to spray and get out of here. So they bring like odd people in to do odd jobs, but for the most part, it was a headquarters platoon. That was like the talk people. We had 1 cook, water guy, 2 mechanics, I think, and
About half the people in the COP support. Some way or another.
It was about 50-50.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize, and you might not realize it from reading the book, and if you watch the movie, you would see some of these people, but you wouldn't know what you were looking at, that a base tends to have a lot of support staff relative to the number of people that are there serving the primary combat mission. So you're saying about half of the base was support. So that's about like a 1-to-1. And those other MOSs are non-primary combat MOSs, right? In the Marines, they say every Marine is a shooter. Does the Army believe in that?
No, my MOS was a shooter, and I wasn't even a shooter. I think I might be overplaying the Army. No, if you were a mechanic, you were a mechanic. I didn't see anyone trying to be Audie Murphy out there. Cook was a cook. He stayed, you know, we'd get in combat, and Hubbard would be in the kitchen the whole time, just hanging out, you know. So if you were combat arms, you were expected to fight, but if you weren't expected to really do much aside from your job that you're assigned to do. But, you know, Grissom, our water guy, was awesome. I got to give a shout out to him. So.
In 2009, what was the standard issue weapons that loadout that guys were getting deployed with? Not for you guys, but what were the support carrying around? An M16?
You know, sometimes they'd have pistols, like M9s that they found, because at all times you had to have a weapon on you, and sometimes you want to carry your rifle or your machine gun out to take a shit or anything. So if you had that M9, you know, you could just tuck it on your belt and you'd be good to go. But they had basically what we had too, just M4s and same gear we had.
Okay. But you guys were armed. You guys were qualified on tons of weapons. Yeah. What did you guys carry personally? Were any of you guys saw gunners?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's my bread and butter, man.
Yeah.
We had all types of stuff, man. So we had the 240 Bravo, We had the M249 saw. We had just your regular M4, and we had 203s. We had when we first got there, I never seen one. Let me tell you, I love this gun to death. It's called a Mark 48, and it's like a saw on a 240 Bravo, like just had a baby. And it's the best gun I've ever shot in my life. It was super reliable. And then what did they have that was a saw, like a Mark 46, which was a little bit smaller, I think.
I think the receivers were aluminum.
Right. Yeah, and we had laws. What else we have? Schmaladies.
AT4s.
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to have explosives in your barracks, but we could take on a small, like, tank unit.
I always had grenades on me. I mean, constant. We carried claymores with us constantly. I mean, we were armed to the teeth.
And then our crew serves, we had 50 cals and Mark 19s up on our guard post.
What's a Mark 19 Koppes?
19 is a machine gun that shoots grenades. That's the easiest way to put it out there.
Yeah, I think so. I was talking to Kyle before a couple days ago, and in the book, you manned that Mark 19 the whole day, right? Like 15 hours or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we'll get. I don't want to get too far ahead of it, because I want to. I just, for anybody listening who doesn't know this story, I kind of want to set the environment up so that people can understand kind of what how incredible what you guys did and courageous what you guys did that day was. In the base was at the bottom of a valley. You can easily find actual pictures online with a Google search of views of the base, of captured footage that they found on Taliban PEDs that were recovered. Can you guys kind of describe in your own words? You walk out of the talk, and what do you see?
Oof, mountains.
Yeah.
Mountains on all four directions with a river that you can't survive in. And it was Thunderdome, man. You go in there and you're either gonna come out or you're not.
Yeah, you can go out to take a leak and get shot from literally any direction. There was no top cover anywhere.
At night, when the mountains would kind of block all the light, it was like the darkest I've ever seen anything in my whole life, because it would just be the mountain all around. You couldn't see anything. It was wild.
What was it? Sorry, go ahead.
The moon dust everywhere.
Oh yeah, that's always great at the end of deployment, where like there can be no dust. There can be no dust in anything.
Dust. There's going to be dust.
Yeah. What was it? Early in deployment, a normal day out there where there was no, or I don't know if there was days where there was no contact or no base attacks or anything, but like a low battle day, what was that like?
We got shot at in the morning. About every morning. Some guy would shoot some small arms at the base. So we'd have to get in our gear, go run man the positions, and then we would just stand out there for hours, come back in. But I never felt like nervous. Like I never felt like I was in danger. I mean, it was dangerous, but I would never, the whole time we were there before October 3rd, I was like, oh, that's what they do. They got one guy up in the hills somewhere that we can't find that shoots at us once a day, twice a day, and that's it. But, I mean, you'd wake up, you'd go to guard. If you weren't on guard, you'd have to go out on mission, come back. If it was shower day, you could take a shower, and then watch Predator on a laptop. And then the hardest part was like keeping ourselves busy the whole time and not get bored.
What did you do to not get bored?
I had my mom send out all my old Game Boys and multiple copies of Pokemon.
We had some intense Pokemon going on. Yeah. We would have family movie night where we'd set up a laptop and we'd all sit around this tiny laptop. Everyone's leaned in. Played some Risk, a lot of Risk.
Oh, we played Risk on deployment all the time.
Oh yeah, that was the game. That settled a lot of disputes.
Who had Access and Allies on their computer?
Somebody had it. But we played Risk on the computer too. And then we got into a chess thing for a while, poker, but yeah, it was a lot of spades were played. Some people worked out. We didn't. They had a gym, but I was like, every day of my life's to work out. I'm not trying to go to a gym afterwards.
Yeah, we get smoked on a mission, man.
Yeah.
What was the normal?
Then,
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
When you guys say a mission, like a daily mission, was that a patrol?
Yeah.
Normally the mission was patrol?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was it like interacting with the locals out there?
They didn't really interact with us. They like to stay inside. And they had days that our medical center would be open. So if you needed like medication or something, you could line up outside the gate. And that was like the only time I'd really see people, because by the time we left the gate, it didn't matter how sneaky you were. It didn't matter, what hour of the night you left. The village knew that we were going on a mission. They would all go inside.
So we had, I don't know if any of this is would be familiar for you guys. We had a lot of guys come through who needed like teeth pulled. A lot of locals would have like dental problems. We had a lot of the time there would be wounded locals from Taliban, either stepping on IEDs or getting shot, or they would come in and say that something happened to them. They would make some shit up, like I got hurt by the Taliban, but it was obviously something else that happened. And they would just be looking to get on base or get some free food. They would come by and they would, well, give me some food, give me some money, something like that. Would you get a lot of kind of being pestered by locals for stuff like that?
100%. We were in a tick one time, and a guy showed up like an hour later with 5.56 wounds, and was like, "The man shot me," and we're like, "No, they didn't." He's like, "Please help." And they patched him up and sent him on his way. And I can remember one time there was a huge pink eye outbreak in the village, so they were treating pink eye for like a week straight. They're just like, we're winning hearts and minds over there. So we had a lot of people coming for anything you can think of, just to get some medication, something to eat. The workers on the base would always ask us for like food and sugar and stuff. So, they were definitely getting their money's worth with us being there.
So let me ask you this: was Kamdesh primarily Taliban sympathetic, or were they Taliban, or did Taliban come through and aggress on them and kind of take them over and force them and kind of move in and out of that village, or was it those guys?
I couldn't say for sure because we didn't have the best intelligence, as you may have figured out. So, I mean, we heard that that's a Taliban stronghold. Like people would tell us, they're all in Kamdesh, they're all in Kamdesh, but we can't be doing, we're 2 platoons. We can't be going into a village of 10,000 people that's a Taliban stronghold.
Yeah.
And
a typical patrol was like 8 guys.
Right.
So, I mean, we would take it for their word, but that's all we'd ever hear is just these rumors that it was a stronghold, and we'd go about our day. Yeah,
I mean, it was probably, I'm sure it was. But, we had villages that were sympathetic. We had villages that were, where Taliban were basically living. And we had villages that were anti-Taliban. We had local militias who were vehemently against the Taliban. And they were some of the like the ANA was garbage. We had ANSF, they were good. We had ANA, which were bad. We had like a local Afghan EOD team. They were good. And then we had Afghan militias who were extremely aggressive and operated independently and would go do work on a daily basis. Did you guys have all those elements out there where you were at?
We had the ASG guys, and they were like nerdy local kids.
Yeah.
They're all skinny bastards.
Yeah, I never looked at anyone that was assisting us aside from the Latvians. I thought that's a badass right there. And you could tell like these guys didn't want to be there. They, needed a job, they need some money. They were terrifying sometimes. They would just shoot that RPG off without warning on the base. God.
We were on a mission one time, and they were practicing mortars while we're on mission. Like you don't need to do that when we're on mission. I don't know whose idea that was. Maybe they was trying to kill us.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I mean, we just never knew. Like our mule, they said, they're middle of the road Swiss fist on us, but we never really knew if they were Taliban or friendly or anything. They didn't really interact with us enough, and I felt like maybe the top down wasn't telling us enough that we'd even know what was going on outside of our little realm in the political world of the villages and all that.
Yeah. No, for sure you would. I guess what I am not sure about, because how the structure works out where you guys were at, the team had primarily specialists and privates, three or four sergeants. Was Romesha the only staff sergeant?
Oh, we had two staff sergeants. So you had two staff sergeants for the two squads, and then you had two E5 sergeant team leaders each squad, and then everyone else was just specialists and below. And then you had your E7 platoon sergeant and our lieutenant, who's the platoon leader.
Okay. So the intel probably stayed fairly high, at a high level.
We never heard anything, ever. They would not tell us anything ever. And, you'd just be talking to some local who had a small grasp of English, and they'd be like, ooh, not good, not good. And you're like, I don't know. You know more than me. Guy who, sweeps the showers. So it was nothing but rumors. That's all we had, is hearing rumors. Maybe someone would hear the lieutenants talking or something, but we never knew what was going on outside that wire.
And your guys' interpreters were locals? Or no? Or were they Americans?
So Ron Jeremy was from the city somewhere. He was like an educated guy. He spoke several languages.
Yeah, but I think for the majority, they weren't local. There was Mad Dog. I mean, some of them were horrible, and then they did not show up one day to do their job. You never knew if they got picked up at a Taliban or if they were Taliban. They didn't work anymore. I don't think there's like a 2-week notice you put in for being a Army interpreter, but they would come and go. But I think the ones that were good that we had were from probably the more populated parts of Afghanistan.
Okay. So they were Afghani.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys are out there on this base for 4 months, and you're getting attacked constantly at some level, to some degree, basically daily. You get through the summer, which would be like the fighting season, the spring into the summer. And then in the fall, is it accurate that they were going to close the base? They were planning on closing the base in October, right?
Correct.
And do you think that the Taliban knew that was the plan?
Somebody spilled the beans.
Yeah, somebody. But I mean, we were doing stuff that was kind of maybe obvious. In the middle of the base, there was this giant tree, and we cut it down. It provided cover from the north face, or is that putting green? Putting green.
Yeah.
And they cut it down so that the helicopters could land on the actual base. So we cut off like a huge part of our cover, and we were just moving stuff. We were packing stuff up. So I mean, if the people that were working on the base, or even just watching us on the base, could put one and one together, and we looked at some footage of them just watching us, filming us. I think that they could put one and one together and figure out that we were shutting down.
Now, if anybody wants to deep dive into more information on this, a lot of it's in the book in Red Platoon. So I would recommend reading Red Platoon, watching the movie. Which have you guys seen the movie? Have any of you guys seen the movie?
I have not.
Me either. I watched it.
Okay. I guess I'll if it's okay, I'll ask you about that in a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
And I thought the movie tracked along relatively well with the book, but obviously the book Red Platoon is written from Clint Romesha's perspective, primarily, and then based on interviews and official reports that he cites throughout. But as as time went by and you guys are getting ready to shut down, and then October 3rd happens at dawn, basically, right?
Yeah.
6 o'clock.
Right on the dot, right on what should have been guard, switch over for guard.
And they for sure would have known that.
Yeah. I talked earlier about how we were getting shot at by one guy. These were like highly sophisticated probing, watching where people go, watching what time we switch on guard. Somebody even said like seeing which people would be on guard paying attention. I mean, they had it down pretty packed, pretty tight to figure out what the best time to attack and when they should attack would be. So 6 a.m. was not just some coincidence. They had been planning that for a while.
Yeah, I'm sure that they would have known all your TTPs based on, what they did. They obviously amassed a giant fighting force for that day, which is unheard of, because normally you get rumors of these giant attacks, but then they don't tend to show up to the attacks.
Yeah, we had a lot of those.
Yeah, for like weeks prior, they would say like, oh, there's a huge group. They're gonna come get you today or tomorrow. There's a lot of like false alarms leading up to it.
I remember getting really spun up by that stuff early in deployment, and by the end, literally zero reaction to hearing, 500 Taliban are coming, and everyone just go, okay, we're just gonna keep eating. We're gonna do nothing, because I want people to know that to hear that and do nothing would be very normal, because you hear it every day and it never happens. It would be a very, very normal and very appropriate reaction, because what are you going to do? You're going to spin up, send everyone to their station. Every time that you get word that there might be a big attack, you would never not be in that posture, because it's constant. So to hear that kind of thing is going to happen and not take it seriously, very normal. It makes total sense.
The night before, the police chief in our mule was great, and he came the night before, and he would always come with like coffee or tea. He was just like a real casual dude, and he came with body armor and an AK. And that's another time that people started saying, hey, I think, because he came to tell us, he's like, I think something's coming, just a heads up. But, people would come to the gate all the time and say, hey, Taliban are coming. And then we'd be like, okay, thanks. And they'd be like, can I get some money? And this dude just rolled up. He's like, I think something big's coming down. And then he went back. He's like, I'm gonna post up in the police station. Just rolled back out. So there was little things like that. I think it might have got to the point where it was so often that we started to kind of feel it could have been coming. But like you said, you hear it so many times. It's like, oh no, they're not going to do anything.
What were each of you guys doing when the attack started?
I was playing Civilization 4.
So this is a crazy thing is I relieved Sergeant Hart, who was on guard. And Sergeant Hart had this little thing he liked to do. He'd go on the radio and call to the barracks, and he'd go, whoever's relieving me, could you come out maybe like 30 minutes early? I can't hold it. I got to go to the bathroom. And that was like his MO, right? And I was like, oh, man, I don't really want to go out there 30 minutes early. But we had hot chow that morning. And if you were on guard, when hot chow was going, someone would have to bring you food to the guard post. So I was like, oh, if I go now, they're going to have to bring me food. So I went and I relieved Hart. And I was so stoked to get my breakfast that morning. I was like, oh, this is worth it. But, yeah, so I was on LRAS 1 in the guard tower.
I had just gotten off guard. I think I got off guard maybe like 4 or 6 hours before that. I was trying to get some sleep. I woke up to the explosions.
What were you supposed to do? So you were in LRAS 1, but what were you guys supposed to do when an attack happened? For Kyle and Chris.
Shoot anything that somebody could hide behind, just shoot at it.
We had designated areas that we would go to, depending on what time it was or whatever the case was, or how many people we had. we had a couple of different things we would do. But when you'd wake, say you're asleep or you just came in off guard, you're not sure where you got to go, we had a board that told us where to go.
Okay.
And one of the other things is leading up to that, Romesha started kind of putting things together. And remember, he said if we're just getting like 1 or 2 rounds coming in, don't go.
Exactly.
Because he thinks that they're watching us. Yeah. So we had cut back a lot on because we'd get 2 shots and the entire barracks would go to positions and start just blowing the mountain to shit. So like the month leading up, Ro was like, I don't know, I think that they're watching us. So if we get 1 or 2 rounds, we wouldn't go out. It'd have to be something heavy to put your gear on and head out.
Okay. Now, the whole account of that day is there's a lot. But I guess I don't know if the right thing to do is ask you guys to go through it moment by moment. But I guess what I would ask is, what do you want people to know about what happened that day? That
say,
from your perspectives.
We talked about this before, and from the day we got back, it's always about the 8 guys first and foremost who didn't get to come home, and just the sacrifice they made. And I think that if any good ever comes from anything with the books and movies and all this, it's that their name gets put out there. So first and foremost, it's always the guys that gave it all. And then after that, I'd say that every guy in this platoon put it all on the line to make sure everyone else came home. So when people say, what do you want to know? I would say that a platoon of dudes fought harder than just about anyone could have ever fought to make sure that as many people as we could have come home could come home.
There are a lot of people putting their lives on the line to retrieve bodies as well in the middle of combat, which, because you didn't want them getting one of your guys and their gear and stuff wearing any sort of propaganda victory or anything like that. You really didn't want, because God knows what they'll do to you.
Mm-hmm. It was it's still to this day is like crazy to think that those guys like Hart and everybody just ran right into a wave of bullets to do whatever they could to keep up the fight. And I think the thing you want to know is that bravery is immeasurable. It's hard to even comprehend, thinking that knowing you were going to die and you still did something that heroic. So we always say that's what we want people to always know about that day.
Jones, do you have anything to add to that?
It was just, I'm sorry, what was the question again? I'm sorry, I got kind of caught up in what they were saying.
Sure. I guess the question is, from your perspective, because this story's been told at high levels, but from your perspective of where you were at that, throughout the day, what do you want people to know that hasn't really been told?
But I'd have to say, man, I've seen a lot of bravery. The 8, absolutely. But I've seen a lot of bravery that day that don't get a lick of acknowledgement or attention at all. And I want to make it kind of my mission, hopefully, to kind of tell what those guys did that day as well. Because thinking back on it, if we didn't band together like we did, I mean, it was sheer chaos. I mean, it really was. At the first beginning of it, it was just, and they hit us hard, and we lost communication with people. Certain people didn't have radios, so it was chaos for us to band back together. I mean, it was a crazy experience. It was one of the most, and I try to stay positive about it, so I focus on what the good things I seen people do that day. So it was bravery, like tell them about Dave Knight when you seen him.
Davidson was on guard at the ECP, and I went with Kirk because that was going to be our designated position that was on the board. And we got there and went through, and there was a local or an A&A guy, I can't remember which, but he was hiding in the little staircase that goes up to the ECP tower, and Kirk grabs him by the collar. He's like, get out of there, you pussy, and throws him across the room. And I go up and see the tower, and they were just, Dave had shot like 8 or 9 boxes of 240 ammo out. And like, I tried to, it's like the top had been like blown off. We had like the wooden frames to give you some shade and stuff. And I tried to pop my head up there to get the gun working, and it was just like splash, splash from there was like 8 or 9 guys just trained on the tower. So I was like, "Fuck that," and went down, and that's when Kirk got shot.
But I mean, like, just the fact that he stood there, and there were certain times where, like, Danley was like, "Man, let's move around to the front of this Humvee," and we did that. And as soon as we did, like a B-10 or a rocket-propelled grenade went off right where we were standing, right where Koppes was, and he saved my life. If he didn't suggest that, and I mean, we're talking like split-second decisions that are saving people's lives, and or saving your own life. It was just chaos. I mean, it really was the first bit. And I went to you when that first kicked off. I was supposed to assist him and get him ammo, and when he's reloading, cover fire for him.
But yeah, we talked before we came on that we would talk about the guys who don't, get the chance to have their stories told.
Absolutely.
From Red Platoon, that we could put their names out there, because this is part of their legacy too, and we definitely think that a lot of people don't get the recognition and the praise that they should for what they did that day.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, and I think that but I think I would extend that to equally to you guys as well, because it seems like in the morning you guys take fire from hundreds of enemy from all directions from an elevated position into a base where immediately you have team members isolated, lose communication, you are having your defensive positions taken out, mortar pit taken out, and it seems like I guess I would be curious to know psychologically if you felt in the chaos of that hope at that moment, or where did you in the beginning in the first few minutes, what did you think your chances were here?
The first few hours were pretty bleak.
Yeah.
I thought I was dead. I said a prayer, and I asked God to be with my mom, and I was like, I'm ready to die. And Jones came over, and I thought he was dead when that rocket hit. And at that point, it really just sunk in that this is probably where I'm gonna die. And but after I prayed, man, I just had like a little calm come over me, and I was like, stay on target, and I stuck with it. But man, I was so sure. I think everyone that stepped out of that to go into that was like, this is it. There's nothing in any training or even your imagination because you could see some of the tracers, the rockets, and it was just like rain, coming down.
Absolutely.
And I was just like, this is it. And I made my peace, and then I fired away, and that was the first like couple minutes, and the hope didn't come until like much later in that day, that I felt like we could take it back and that we were going to make it.
Yeah, a lot of sorry, we're dead, man. Just let's just fight, and that seems to be what a lot of people were thinking.
I don't know. I can't imagine. There's no way to imagine. I've never been in a situation like that, or even close. So I can't imagine. Zach, you manned a Mark 19 grenade launcher in a turret of a Humvee, right? For the whole, and you defended a whole section of that base, basically, for the entire length of the day.
Well, Jones was there until he got blown up. I'll tell the story real quick. Like he said, the first place he's got to come over is to me, and they were waiting. They had us down to. They knew where we were gonna go, and Jones came over and Danley took him to the other side of the truck, and a B-10 rocket hit like the side of the building we were against, and it blew him down some stairs onto his back. And I mean, the second the smoke clears from that rocket, he was just gone. And I was like, my friend's been obliterated. He's no more. And I was just screaming. I was like, Jones, Jones. And all of a sudden I see his feet and hands like start pulling himself out. I was like, oh, thank God. But yeah, and then I think we looked at each other and we were just like, you can't be here, man. You're gonna die. Yeah. And so once he left, that was it. I was by myself.
How many rounds do you think you put out of that thing that day?
I don't know, man. We had that Humvee stacked from back to front, nothing but ammo cans of Mark 19, and I ran out twice that day. So I wouldn't even know how to even measure how many rounds that was. But I didn't stop shooting the whole day, basically.
From where you were on the Mark 19, you saw you saw the defenses basically evaporate around you.
Correct.
From what the book accounts it, that the ANA were not defending their position, and you had view of the part of the camp where they had basically an opening in their fence, right?
Yeah, and they took off.
But,
some took off that way, but they hit the ANA side of the base pretty hard quick. So the people that were close to our side ran away past me, and then the ones that were still too deep in the ANA side took out that back gate. So, I mean, they just dispersed basically immediately. They had a guard tower beside me. Some dude was just chilling out in that thing, and that first rocket just drilled that tower. He was obliterated. Jones and I just looking at each other like,
dude, that was crazy.
I mean, the whole tower was gone.
They would bring us people and be like, he's dead. And we're like, he's dead, man. There's nothing we can do. Like,
we were talking about it. We thought that they thought maybe just they didn't really know American medicine. They thought we could save these people, but I mean, they were missing limbs and gunshots to the head.
They're dead.
Dead.
Yeah, I've seen people I've seen that type of thing happen. They don't know. I mean, for people who don't understand the education of an Afghani villager somewhere in the middle of Afghanistan is basically just folklore. All they know is like mysticism and folklore and what they've been told by their fellow villagers. And a lot of that's been manipulated to give them wrong impressions by kind of bad actors. And that's why that's what the Taliban does basically.
They told the village we were Russians. When we first came, that we were Russians and we were back to finish what the Russians started in the 80s.
Yeah.
So there was that fear that those people that lived through when the Soviet Union came through, they had that idea that we were back again. So they just didn't quite understand everything that was going on. Politically and even around their own area.
Yeah, I think honestly, some of these motherfuckers think we know magic. They fucking
yeah. One of them spoke English. I tried to explain to him we went to the moon, and he thought I was full of shit. He's like, man, you're high as crap. I mean, it was crazy. I was like, man, you watch.
They'd be like, that? We've been in that? Like, yeah, we've been there, baby.
just like, all right,
you'll see. We'll see one day.
And Jones, after you left the Humvee, where did you go?
Romesha told me to go to Gregory, Justin Gregory. He was a specialist at the time. Mm-hmm. He was pinned down behind a generator, and he said he needed reinforcement. And so I went to him. Like he said, I got blown up, and then kind of when I came to, I ran to him, kind of low crawled to him. I got in the trench with him, and I don't know how long I was in the trench with Greg, man. It was pretty intense. And from there, that's where we were trying to provide cover fire for people like Hart and people running ammo to the guys in the truck. And it was just not going to happen. And we started running out of ammo because we weren't getting resupply. Like I said, no communication, just chaos kind of. So I mean, but I could sit here and tell you about 2 or 3 hours about that trench, man. But it was crazy. They were lobbing grenades at us. I mean, that's where I engaged the enemy in the camp, was at that trench, Gregory and I. And I'll tell you this right here. We all have moments, like you always say, like everybody has a moment, and they excel and they do real well. And Gregory in that trench, he was the first one to identify the enemy. When we were laying down there, it was just me and him. And he said, dude, there's guys at the shower. And we popped up and engaged them. And, we were kind of communicating with each other, like, we don't know what's going on. Where is everybody else? Like, do we need to stay here? Do we need to move? Also, too, we were getting shot at by snipers. Like I said, when we engaged the guys on the camp, they realized that we were there and they started attacking us. So I could hear grenades just being lobbed at us. Even later,
So not all of them went off.
Not all of them went off. Maybe they was from China or something.
They had pineapple grenades from who knows where.
Right. And but that was pretty intense. But that's where I went after Koppes. And
maybe if they sprung for better grenades, they could have got Jonesy.
oh yeah, we could hear them. You'd hear and it's a boom. And I remember Greg was like, "What is that?" I said, "They're throwing grenades at us." I remember that position was just impossible to hold, especially when you don't have any ammo. And they shot an RPG at us, and it gave us some concealment.
What blew up the generator?
Yeah, it blew up the generator, and it gave us some concealment, the smoke. And we went back to the barracks to see what was going on and reconsolidate and see what the plan was. And that was kind of the Alamo position at that point.
It's difficult to understand the levels of danger at this point. Like, you're talking guys were inside at the moment you're describing, enemy had already gone inside your camp. They're within range of throwing hand grenades at you, and people are shooting at you from all different positions and distances.
If you weren't in a hard building, somebody was shooting at you.
What
Yes.
to try to understand this? How often would you hear a bullet snap past?
Oh,
It was
continuous.
It never stopped.
Constant.
No,
Bombs were coming.
I was beside the roof of that building, and you could just see the chips of the roof the whole time were just flying up the ground. That moon dust we were talking about, it was just like knee high because it kept shooting up from where they were hitting. And then when the rockets started hitting buildings and then the smoke was flying, I mean, it just never stopped. They never stopped their volley until they thought that they killed us all. So that was their mistake.
It's unbelievable. Like if you've had a round snap over your head, it's like an oh shit moment. Like, it was close. And sometimes you'll get one and sometimes you get a couple. And then this was constant for you guys for hours.
I couldn't tell you how many people I've seen almost die. I mean, just if they turned a certain way, they would have been dead. One of the guys was screaming at us in the trench, and the sniper that had us down, like we were pinned down for a minute, he came to give us a message, and it was Sergeant Days.
Mm-hmm.
And he was screaming at us. It was so loud. Like I said, you don't really know what's going on. He was screaming at us, telling us something. We were going to tell him that the enemy was in the wire. And you could see the bullet. Like, here's his face. He's screaming at us, telling the message. So you could see the bullet hitting right next to his face. In multiple bullets. Like, guy had his scope on Days' face. And it just...
Sometimes there'd be so many bullets you could feel it in the air. Like when you tried to breathe, the air was hot. You was trying to breathe. It was it just never stopped the whole probably first hour and a half. It was a constant barrage.
Absolutely.
to try to paint the picture a little bit, how many people were outside defending how many Americans were outside defending the compound?
12.
Yeah, probably about. At one point when they went to the Alamo, it was me. That was it.
It was basically
It was me.
Fuck.
Yeah, you had half the cop.
Because everyone that was in another truck was pinned down, and then so yeah, I mean it was one at one point before we could regroup. And
Yeah, you had the only guard position that operated the whole
Yep.
day.
And Kyle, during the first hour, where were you at? Where did you bounce between?
I went with Kurt. After he got hit, we went to go find litters. I couldn't find one. Somebody already grabbed it. And by the time I got back, it was either Corval or Doc Cordova. I can't remember, but we got him on the stretcher, got him back, and then I ran back and forth between the Sure building where the ECP tower was and our barracks several times. And then we started taking RPGs into the Sure building. They had about like an inch thick plywood roof, and it would trigger the detonation. And Sergeant Days was there, and it hit directly above his head. It blew him to the ground. We picked him up, and then we walked a couple of feet, and it happened again. And we're just like, fuck this. And we ran back to the barracks. That's where I got the 240. I had it at the floor of the barracks, pointed at the back door where we normally smoke a cigarette. And then I pushed out, and that's when Roe took the team out to retake the front of the base. This probably 45 minutes at that point.
I had no
concept of
concept
time at all.
It's just
And then I pretty much moved. They had like the big round area where like the mosque was and all the buildings, and then they would go up to the chow hall and the gym over by the A&A side. And I was slowly pushed out through there, shooting at the switchbacks, covering down on, when he was reloading the gun, I would shoot at the diving board because you could hear, talking the guns. You could hear when he was reloading. So I would shoot over there or just wherever I saw muzzle flashes or anything.
What's crazy is I didn't know he was out there, so I'd shoot. I'd be reloading, panicking. I didn't know where these bullets were coming from. I'd see the hill get lit up, and that was the only way I knew anyone else was even alive, was someone else was shooting out there with me.
All right, so with that, we're wrapping up part 1 of the story of the Battle of Kamdesh, Red Platoon. What I believe still goes down as the deadliest battle in the history of Afghanistan. And I think already it's obvious that the events of that day will go down in history as one of the most historic battles in all the war on terror, as well as one of the greatest displays of heroism and courage and selflessness and what being a soldier is that may ever see in our lifetime. Stay tuned for episode 2, where we talk more about the rest of the battle and what happened that day from the perspectives of Kyle Knight, Christopher Jones, and Zachary Koppes. Thank you.